Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hallmark Guy Podcast. I am Baptiste, the Hallmark Guy, and today I'm going to recap and review a 2026 Hallmark Channel movie. We're going to talk about Season 2 Blossom, which premiered on Saturday, April 4th, 2026 at 8, 7 Central on Hallmark Channel as the third new 2026 Spring into Love movie. It starred Emily Tennant and Carlo Marx. I was really happy to see Carlo again, as his last leading role on Hallmark was in Scouting for Christmas at the beginning of Countdown to Christmas 2024, which was a really great movie. And later that same season, he had a cameo in Sugar Plum, wonderful movie. A little more than a year without a new Carlo appearance on Hallmark. And the Season 2 Blossom was technically the 2026 Easter movie. Definitely was a spring one. Easter and spring go together. Saying Easter movie because it premiered on Easter weekend on the day before, but it was not a day spring presentation, and it does not look like we'll have more of those, which is a bummer because I really love those. But fun fact, Carlo was in the day spring Easter movie in 2023, The Blessing Bracelet, which is one of my all-time favorite Hallmark movies. So it's fun that you can have an official Easter and unofficial Easter presentation. So in the movie, Elise, played by Emily, always wanted to be a writer, but never finished writing her first book, which weighs heavy on her. She works for a publishing company, I believe in Chicago, seeing the outside they show at the beginning. They propose for a permanent position there because she has a temporary contract because she keeps moving. And at first she refuses, but then she accepts. She just needs some time to go back to Driftless, which it took me for them to say twice to realize that it was the name of town, to sell her grandma's bookstore. In Driftless, Max, played by Carlo, harvests apples with his dad and wants to find a distributor for his cider, even though his dad is not big on that. The town is getting ready for the Apple Blossoms Festival, where they host a lot of events, like a book nook, which is kind of a book club thing, and rides through the blossoms. Elise and Max knew each other when they were younger. Elise was actually in love with him, and he didn't know. And even though they don't start on the right foot, they decide to work together. Elise will help Max come up with stories for his cider to sell, and he will help her host the book nook. They grow closer and he makes her go back to writing. Unfortunately, a storm damages the blossoms, but Elise finds a way to use the blossoms for a new cider recipe, and she ends up buying the bookstore herself and staying in town. And she finishes and publishes her book. And of course, they get together. So we're going to start with what worked for me, and what worked for me was the whole concept. The concept of a small town centered around a season, a simple story. I love those. When I'm looking on Hallmark Plus, I'm like, sure, New York's fine, and I'll watch a New York movie or whatever, but most of the time I want a small town movie. So that whole concept of going back to your small town, such a cozy small town with the weather, I'll talk about when it was shot, but when we had a lot of rain, and I love that kind of moody weather atmosphere. And yeah, just a small town where everyone knows each other. It's so cozy, just so calm, quiet, simple life. Really, really like that. Centered around a season. Spring was at the center of the movie, and I'm saying for the past few years, I feel like in the past, Hallmark relied a lot on, and I mean, Hallmark Cards relies on seasons to sell cards. And the channel used to do it was really movies that fit the seasons. And I feel like the past years that got lost until 2023 when they went back to really making fall movies. And I said, and I loved Hallmark, but you know, until fall they don't really know what they're doing with the movies, and then they know like it's fall and Christmas. This year for spring, they're doing spring, and I loved that. I love that it was centered around spring for spring, and a simple story. It was what we went back to old Hallmark, and I love that. When I say old Hallmark, is that really, like, again, small town, all that, nothing too complex, which is fine. But we went back to that, and it's also fine. I love that. I like the cast. Really liked Emily and Carlo. They had great chemistry. And it starred Laura Soltis. When I saw her name on the screen, I was like, of course, it stars Laura Soltis, and I love her. She's been in. I tried to ask online how many Hallmark movies. They wouldn't give me a definitive answer, and I didn't count. But she's been in so many Hallmark movies, and I love her. And when I saw her name, I was like, yes, and of course she's in this movie. So love that. And to go back to the cozy aspect of the town and the moody weather, the storm scene felt really cozy when they were all kind of rushing to get home and like staying all home and cozy or like at the shop, the whole rain, all that. It gave me a cozy atmosphere, and I really, really loved it. Now let's move on to what I did not like. And there's nothing really specifically that I did not like, apart from the fact that you can clearly see that it was probably shot in the fall. That's which would make sense when you're looking at shooting timelines. It's probably fall, and it could show like It didn't look. It didn't look very springy. It looked a lot like fall. Like spring and fall share temperatures. I'd say a lot sometimes, but the temperature in the fall, same temperature in the fall and the spring doesn't hit the same, and you can see it with the weather in the movie. So that was my thing. The only thing is that we saw her without really seeing her come to the realization that she needed to keep the bookstore. She opens a letter from her grandma, she reads it, but then she still goes to the event the next day with, at least it looks like, still in her mind selling the bookstore. And then throughout the event, she realizes, without us seeing it, that she's going to keep it. So we know, of course, we know she's going to keep it. And when we read the letter, we realize that's the thing. But then we didn't see the moment, the full realization, because the next day she came looking like she was still going to sell it. So that was what I did not like. Some things to point out. I never thought about this, but apparently apples blossom in the spring. So I learned something, because you think about apple in the fall, but yeah, they need to blossom in the spring to be ready for fall. So yeah. At first, when she comes back to town to take care of her grandmother's bookstore, I was like, why is it always the grandkids doing this? Where are the parents? And actually, someone asked her, "What about your parents?" I was like, "Well, they're on a cruise for a whole year." And I was like, "Oh, it's fun that they're noticing it." And of course, it's such a new thing. I think that those they've become really popular for a whole year. And I thought to myself, imagine being on a boat for a year. I don't know that I would like that. So yeah, it's weird. And then Vanessa, who's the lady who was in charge of selling, of finding the buyers and all that for the bookstore, she comes in. She's in like two scenes. She comes in and she kind of like she's almost flirty with Max, and like, oh, she's going to be a troublemaker. We don't care about her. She just pops in and out. Hey, I have a buyer. That's it. So I was like, okay, that's nice. We don't have that fight between the two. And finally, Driftless. First time we hear about Driftless is when Max's dad tell him, "Oh, well, the Driftless bookstore is going for sale." I said, "Oh, that's the name of a bookstore, Driftless." Okay, and then realized that's the name of a town. I was like, "Oh," I looked it up. I don't think it's a real town, but yeah, it took me a while to realize. It took me at least two times hearing it to realize that it was the name of a town. Final thoughts. I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I struggled with where ranking it. I think I'm still ranking it below Missing the Boat, and I'm totally blanking the Lacey Chabert movie for this year. Let me just go in my list, which is called Lost in Paradise. I think I'm still ranking it behind those two, which are at 4 as well. But I really liked it. At some point, I thought it could go first, but I think it's going to be a 3 for now. And let me tell you what I wrote actually on Letterboxd. This is a type of movies that Hallmark needs to focus on making. Here we can get the international movie every now and then, but we do not need complex stories. This is the type of movies that made me fall in love with Hallmark. Small town, characters come back to a small town, centered around a season, simple, etc. This is what Hallmark is about and should focus on doing. And I think this is where I'm going to stop. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the movie. Follow the Instagram at the Hallmark Guy Podcast. I post clips of the podcast and things that I do just for Instagram on there. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.